7.1, the legal depository.
Jerry, you want to repeat that again?
Yeah.
Because I didn't hear that.
On December 3rd at 7 o'clock, we'll have a special meeting where there'll be a discussion on a new gym. There'll be a proposal, and we'll roll that out to the public, and we'll take public feedback.
Yeah, we're doing the gym.
We have junior high wrestling here that night and junior high girls basketball, I believe.
On Tuesday?
It was not.
It's not, nothing's on the
Not
calendar.
Oh, that's a Tuesday?
It's a Tuesday.
Sorry. I
Yeah.
thought that was Monday. the
No, it's
2nd.
Tuesday.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, we looked, and there was a word.
Okay.
That's why we picked it, because there's nothing on the calendar.
My bad.
I'm impressed with you the day before, we had all that.
7.1, legal depository.
That's me.
Yeah.
In our July meeting, when we did our legal representatives, we did not say the South Dakota fit in that, in all of those things. We did approve it at a different time, but we just didn't say it was also a legal depository. So we just needed a motion to approve South Dakota Fit as a legal depository in addition to Dakota Bank for the Fulton area schools effective July 1st of 2019.
Motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 7.2, declare surplus property.
Okay, so we need some volunteers here for the appraisal. We want to do sealed bids for the 2012 Dodge 1500, oh, I'm sorry, 2002 Dodge R15 pickup. So if we do sealed bids for this, we can open those bids at the December 9th meeting. I did a Kelly Blue Book on it, and it appraises fair condition, 2,700 to 4,300, and good condition, $3,086 to about $5,000. I would say it's more fair condition, it has a little bit of rust on it. But I just want, if someone wants to volunteer to appraise it, I think we can do we can say 2,700, appraisal value of 2,700 to 4,900, and do a range, because we're gonna do sealed bids anyway. So we can just do that range. I do wanna take volunteers for those appraisals, because you are not able, as elected officials, to bid on this, or put in a sealed bid. So instead of just nominating some of you, I want you to volunteer. But you can't put in anything for the sealed bid. I can, okay.
I wouldn't do it. Scott.
And one more. It can actually be anyone in the public too, as long as you're a registered voter.
I'm an Jerry Commissioner.
I heard he used recuse.
I need one more.
Can I do it?
You can do it.
I'll do it.
Yes.
We need a motion on
Okay, so we just need a motion and a second to declare the 2002 Dodge R15 pickup as surplus property with the intent to sell on sealed bids.
Make that motion.
Second.
that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 7.3, board policy manual update.
Okay, this one, a couple months ago, we voted to do a policy review. I've been in contact with Gary Kaufman from the Associated School Boards, and he's finishing up a school right now, and then we are next on the list. So my guess is that at the December meeting, we'll have some policies to review. So I hadn't heard from him for a while, so I sent him an email last week, and he assured me that he has all the stuff that he needs, and he's starting to work on our policies. So that's all I have. And I don't know why I attached my superintendent report to that one. It does not belong there.
7.4, food service procurement plan code of conduct.
our school district participates in the federal USDA free and reduced lunch program. We are required to have a food service procurement procurement plan and code of conduct in place. And what this does is it explains how food service expenses are spent. They need to be purchased with free and open competition, transparency in transactions, comparability, and documentation on all procurement activities. What the code of conduct outlines are the standards expected from all persons who are engaged in the procurement process, as well as disciplinary action for violations. We just have to have this on our file and in order to receive federal funds.
We need a motion on this.
Yep.
We need a motion and a second to approve the food service procurement plan code of conduct.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second those. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 7.5, ASBSD plan appointment.
Okay, this one is, it's your Associated School Boards of South Dakota. LAN stands for Legislative Action Network. What they like to do is they like to have at least one board member, and it could be all of you if you're interested. What they do is if there's, up on, in Pier, if the legislators are doing something and they need input from board members, they will email you or call you and get your opinion. And you'll also receive information from the Associated School Boards based on legislative action that takes place in Pier. So if anybody wants to do it, we just need to get your name, we fill out a form and we send it in, and you will receive information from the Associated School Boards once the legislative session starts. Does anybody want to do that? Anybody have any interest in that? We don't have to, it's up to you.
Scott and I did last year.
Anybody else want to do it?
I can do it.
Ryan wants to? I mean, you guys can all do it if you want to, we just have to call your names down. Anybody else besides Ryan? No? Good, okay. Ryan, you're it.
We'll need a motion on that.
No. And I usually put my name down too, I usually get them too, so. That way Ryan and I can discuss.
Well, actually, no, sorry.
We do need a motion?
Yeah, let's do one.
A motion, need a motion and a second to Ryan Nelson as the ASBSD land appointment.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 7.6, ASBSD standing resolution legislation position discussion.
All right, so, a little bit of background on this, and I'm not sure how in-depth the board wants to get with this, but on Friday of this week, BJ was selected a couple months ago, Ryan was the alternate. The Associated School Boards does what they call delegate assembly. And what they do is they come up with these standing positions and legislative resolutions based on items that they feel are going to be topics during the legislative session. And they come up with, you know, we're gonna oppose this, or we're gonna support this. And so really what we need to do, BJ is not able to go, Ryan's not able to go. So I think the first order of business would be to try to figure out if somebody wants to go in their place, because it's this Friday. And if nobody's gonna go, then we really don't need to discuss all of these positions. I mean, we don't need to go through all of them. My opinion is they're pretty self-explanatory, and they're developed by the Associated School Boards with school board members, and again, to kind of direct them and guide them. Once issues come up, they'll know how to lobby the legislators when it comes time for that. Does anybody want to go? I believe it's at, is it 1 o'clock, BJ?
Yeah, I think it's one.
I think it's 1 o'clock, and at the Ramcota.
Yeah, I guess.
Jerry can go. Anybody else want to go? Okay. Scott? Yes, no? Okay, so we'll send Jerry. Do you want any direction?
You want this back?
Do you wanna go over this, or what do you wanna do, how do you wanna handle it?
If everybody kind of read through it, I guess should ask if anybody disagrees with any of their standings. I guess I had one issue, I guess the capital outlay adjustment, they want to go back, well, our capital outlay is capped now at $2,800 per student, and they want to go back to the $3 per $1,000 in valuation, which I'm okay with. The part that I talked to Dr. Fogarty, under the old formula, a school district could spend up to, or 1.5% of your total evaluation. I asked them if that was still part of it, because we're a school district like us, our evaluation is almost $1 billion. It's on a project. That means you could spend $15 million without a vote. I guess that wouldn't be for, that's my own view, I wouldn't be for letting the school board do that. That's the hang up I have there. I don't know how anybody else feels on that. But I don't know if that's still part of it. I asked him that, and he really didn't give me an answer, I guess.
And I think that would have to be explored more once you, because then what they do, just so the public knows, is there's a school board member, one from every school district in the state, and they go through all these, like I'm on school finance, number one, school funding, and it talks about different ways to fund schools. And so they'll go through and they'll actually vote on their rationale on everything on here. School funding, our resolution is this, do you support it or do you not? And they used to hold up cards, green card for yes and a red card for no. And then that way, it gives their leadership direction on that's how we're gonna lobby school funding. So there's things on there like school funding, there's transgender items on there, there's school sparsity things, there's capital outlay things, there's alternate instruction, there's homeschool participation. There's, every topic that you can imagine is on here. And they spend 4 hours or more going over all these things and having discussions about them, especially, and sometimes it's divided 50-50. And then they talk. And so there's all kinds of things in here. Accountability waiver process, protecting school district valuations. So there's a lot of things that will impact schools if there's legislation that's introduced. This gives them direction if there's legislation there. Obviously, if nobody brings up a homeschool participation bill, then they just forget about it and they won't worry about it. But there will be some hot topics, and homeschool participation will be one. The capital outlay cap that Jerry talked about, the 2,800 will come up because a lot of districts are, next year will be 2,800, will really struggle raising enough money for capital outlay. And so there'll be a big push for that. So there's lots of things that they do, and this is a really important process, again, to give their leadership direction and their lobbyists who are paid for by the organization to go and lobby legislators, so.
But I think you're right, I think the reason they were gonna put this cap on is because there was a lot of school boards were raising it high, and then they were taking in money, and people were getting mad about it, I think is the reason.
Yeah, there were a lot of districts across the state that were taking that money and putting it away in a little reserve, and had a lot of reserves, and I think that's the reason why the cap came into play. When the state put the money toward teacher salaries, that was one of the stipulations, is the cap would go on. But overall, I think the resolutions are really good. I don't think there's really a lot of them that I would disagree with. There might be some specific pieces of it once the discussions are had that needs to be talked about, but overall, I think they're really good.
Anybody else have anything to add? Let's see, where we're at, 8.1.
Yep. Okay, my report, I'm gonna go through it pretty quick here. The school webpage, we keep changing that thing about every day. We kinda had some downtime with it, but I've talked about the last couple months. We're gonna try to add more pictures to get them scrolling through. We're just trying to add information for the public to make sure that it's as user-friendly as possible. We still have a ways to go, but rest assured, we're working on it and trying to make changes almost daily on it, and it does improve and gets better. I check it quite often, and there are things that are different on it today than there were even last week, so we're working on it. It's a work in progress. Last month I talked about accreditation. On October 30th, I finally got a letter from the state of South Dakota saying that we are fully accredited. We do have a few items that we have to follow up in order to comply with our accreditation. There's kind of some big things going through with the changes as far as the Department of Ed's concerned. There were several school districts, and we were one of them. The reason why our accreditation got held up is we have to be able to show that our teachers are teaching to all the content standards. And so we use different tools like PlanBook EDU, which is a big lesson plan program on the computer where the teachers can enter their lesson plans. They tie them back to the standards that they're supposed to be teaching, and every time the teacher enters their lesson plans in there, it keeps track and counts how many times those standards are taught. And it'll show that maybe this one was taught 3 times and this one wasn't taught at all. But the state wants that information. They want to know that we're teaching the standards to a certain depth, the intended depth that they want us to teach them to, which is very, very difficult to show. So like I said, there are several schools, it wasn't just us, that are really struggling with that. And so we will have to do some follow-up with it and provide them more information by February to make sure that we are going to stay accredited. But as of right now, we're fully accredited, and that's a good thing. It only took about 147 documents, didn't it, Mr. Cassens? Give or take about 100? It was a lot. Item number 3 on my list. Right now we were walking kids over to the public library. If you haven't noticed, it's kind of been cold and snowy. And so we have come up with a plan to use the local transit bus to haul our kids over to the library, there and back. And so we are being charged for it. It's pretty minimal. It keeps the money locally here in the community, and it uses the transit bus, which we have a little bit more flexibility with as opposed to our school buses, which we do not own. So if you see the transit bus in the middle of the day hauling kids back and forth to the library, that's what they're doing. They're getting our kids there and back. So we appreciate their willingness to work with us. And so far, we've used it for about a week and a half now, and it's worked out fairly well. We've made some tweaks to some schedules, but other than that, it's working pretty well. Like I said before, the DOE is kind of undergoing some changes, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. If you want to jump onto KELOLAND News, it's on there. You have to dig a little bit. But our state government has a lot of oversight committees, and they recently reviewed about 7 different organizations within state government, and the Department of Ed was one of them. And so if our school district does something wrong, we kind of get slapped on the wrist and it gets publicized. When you looked at our accreditation status online, it said that we were on probation because we hadn't received official word. But the Department of Education, they've kind of, it'll say in the article that they've been partially taken over by a group of legislators. And so those legislators are going to help the leadership with the Department of Ed make some decisions because they don't think that the performance of our students on our standardized test scores, our smarter balanced, is where it needs to be based on the amount of money that the state's put into our teacher salaries. So somewhere along the line, they have the belief that just because you give teachers more money, that our test scores are magically going to get better and improve, and that doesn't happen. And so the legislators are concerned about that, but you have to really dig to find that information anywhere. It's not on their website, it's not published anywhere, it's buried in a couple articles on KELOLAND News. So I do fear, however, that that's going to put more pressure on schools to produce more proof and more documentation that we're doing certain things. And so that's really the reason why I brought it up, because I think that we're going to have to be held accountable more, and whether that's a good or bad thing, I'll let everybody else decide about that. I'm going to start having, right now I kind of have regular all-staff meetings, or I don't have regular all-staff. We have one when I feel that we need one. But I'm gonna start having regular scheduled meetings with our distance between the elementary building and the things that go on over here at the middle school, high school, and not having the connection with the old school anymore. I just feel like a lot of people feel like they're being left out of the loop, so I'm gonna schedule those meetings, and for the most part, it's gonna be building project updates. Just to kind of let everybody answer or ask questions, and I will be able to answer questions if I can, or if anything else comes up, Mr. Castles and I will be able to address the staff at that time. Obviously, the elementary move's coming up. We're going to be going on tours of the Catholic and the Methodist churches on Thursday of this week, just to kind of see the layout, to see where we think our classes will fit. And then we're going to start talking about things that we need to do to facilitate that move. And that moves in April. And we really don't have a lot of time in March or the first part of April to make a clean break and get out of the building before they start to remodel. So we think we're probably gonna have to start after Christmas, doing some packing and maybe moving some things after school, maybe when we don't have school, to make sure that we're gonna be able to be out of there in April. We have something, number 7, called OAC meetings or owner meetings. Right now, it's basically Scott and BJ, myself, Mr. Cassens, Jeanette, the head of our custodial staff, and Jeremy Demery with technology. We all go to those meetings. Again, I feel like the staff, they kind of feel like they're out of the loop a little bit. So I'm proposing that we add a couple members, and it would be the 2 teachers that were on the building committee, just to sit in on those meetings and be a part of the discussion and hear what's going on and hear the time frame, so that then the rest of the staff has somebody to come back to and say, hey, what happened at the meeting, and they can tell them, and they will be able to be better informed. And sometimes it's really hard because, one day we had a guy here, this poor guy, I felt so bad for him. When they put the big precast walls on, there was about an 1.5-inch crack at the bottom from the wall to the foundation. And it was snowing out, and this guy's mixing mortar up in a wheelbarrow, and he's stuffing mortar up underneath that crack with a piece of wood and a little trowel. And he didn't look very happy to be here. But, I don't know if the staff, they want to know that, where that guy was from or what he was doing. Cranes show up all the time. There was a crane that was up today. I think they were working on the roof, putting up the metal. I don't know what they want to know. So by having those people at that meeting, they can get what they want to know and share it with the rest of the staff. And as always, let the board know when I'm going to be gone. November 20th is my Region 3 Superintendent's meeting in Pierre, and I will be gone that day to attend that meeting, and that is my report. Any questions from anybody?
Secondary principals report.
I would begin with the ACT report that we received here just after our last board meeting, so I wasn't able to present this in October. So the board has copied our 2 documents. First I have up is document A, shows the 5-year trend of our average ACT scores. If you take a look at graduation year 2019, again, this is always a year after the fact, so this would have been last year's seniors. We had 12 students take the ACT test, which is 93% of the class. So it was a small class, and if you remember, you've been around enough, when we have those really good years, and it looks like we're knocking it out of the water, I bring it up, but I always caution the board to say, that can turn around depending on the size of your class a lot of times. And maybe when you have a smaller number taking it, and maybe you have a couple low ones or even a couple high ones that act as outliers that will skew your data. For the most part, we are pretty close to the state average. We did better at math, but slightly below the state average in science, reading, and English, and pretty much right on with the composite. Again, a year from now, I might be reporting this and with about the same amount of vigor and excitement, and we might be doing better in all of those. When you got small numbers, you don't get too worked up about the statistics, because you can throw out 1 or 2, and it really can kind of change things how it looks. Actually, the second document, I think, is probably as useful as this one, and this is ACT Report B. It talks about those students that take those upper level math classes, how do they do relative to the rest of the state? And you can take a look at, when you look at our math scores, for students that take Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry, they have a much higher. They have a higher average than the state average of 79, or at least right on it. But if they've had less than the 3 years of math, we are below the state average on those that have less than 3 years. Same being true with science, pretty much right on with the general science, biochem, and physics. Less than 3 years, talks about our school. We won't have students that have less than 3 because pretty much every junior takes chemistry. So, and I've got a whole packet that ACT sends us, ACT org, out of Iowa City, and if anyone, either the public or the board, is interested in looking at that, statistics and numbers, they don't list student names, so there's no confidentiality breach in there. I'd be more than willing to share that information if anybody would like to see that. Going on to the rest of my report, just some things coming up around campus here. Next Monday, there's a pretty important meeting in Aberdeen that takes a handful of us out of the building. It's one of those required meetings. We do get monies through the Carl Perkins federal grant program, and you have to meet so many times, and the state looks at what we're doing because the feds are looking at the state, and it's just kind of one of those necessary evils. Nice part is it's just Aberdeen. We don't have to travel to Sioux Falls or Rapid City or anything. So we'll have some staff out of the building, and I've got, I think, 2 of my subs lined up, and we'll ask for some assistance in-house as well. Just to let the board and the public know that we've got a young lady that will be in the building on the 18th and 19th. That's next Monday and Tuesday, doing a student field experience. And that's a college student from NSU that will be working with Mrs. Mickelson. Quick good luck and a shout out to Mrs. Demery and Orem Turk students. As next Tuesday, they go on to regionals. Mrs. Weisler has on the 26th parent financial aid information night. I'm sure Mary will throw on a school reach on that. And then December 2nd is another one of those big days where we have students out of the building. That's our Region FCCLA meeting. They say no news is good news, or when you don't hear a lot of complaints, maybe things are going okay. We're over a month into the 7-9 phone policy, where those students don't have a phone in their possession between, basically during school hours. So at 8:30, we collect those phones. They get them back at about 3:25. And parents have been really receptive and open in terms of contacting us if they need to get a message to their child. That part of it has been good. It's probably way too early in the ballgame to say that this is absolutely is going to cause test scores to skyrocket or anything like that. But for the most part, I think our staff is very much in favor of it. And like I said, I know parents have been very supportive of it thus far. But currently, the plan is to keep it at 7-9. Right now, there is no immediate plan to stretch it into the high school, as of right now. Number 4 is something I'm proposing. I visited Mr. Lepke about this. We actually had 2 staff members from Hitchcock-Tulare here last Wednesday that shadowed a couple of our teachers, both Mr. Gaditz, Mr. Casper in the field of physical education, and we had a lady that went out to Thunderbird Colony and spent a few hours with Mr. Cunningham. Hitchcock-Tulare is similar in size, probably a little smaller than us. A lot of times in those small schools, you can be on an island in certain subject areas. We've got one social studies teacher, one science teacher. We were lucky enough to share a little bit of PE, but it's an opportunity to go and find out what they're doing at other districts in the area, learn a few new tricks, see if there's something new out there, and just a chance to network, if anything else. A few years back, we toyed with this idea a little bit, and just kind of didn't really hold out of water. I talked to my staff about it without making any promises. Talked to Mr. Lepke, he was in favor of it, if we could put it together on paper, what it would look like. Essentially, in terms of what this would, let's say, cost the school district, would essentially be transportation to a district with a school car, and possibly some substitute expense. And if we can't get a sub in one of those areas, I'm more than willing to jump in there. We wouldn't send 7 teachers out in the building on a single day or anything like that. And as of right now, we're looking to keep it within a decent driving range. Unless there's a real reason to send, let's say, Mr. Gaditz, since he's in here, to send him to Rapid City Central to shadow a PE health guy there, we probably would not look at that kind of a distance and try to keep it fairly local. Again, it's good for veteran teachers. They can maybe see what some of the newbies are doing out there, and obviously good for some of your continuing contract or rookie teachers or in their first 3 years, just to get maybe a little feedback from somebody else in their subject area. Mr. Lepke, do you have anything to add about that?
No, I think it's a good idea, and as long as we're not sending, I think you said a big group,
No,
any one given day, I think it's a great idea.
And my plan is this to be, I want to give everybody the opportunity. It's not you're not required by contract to go and do this. And we wouldn't make a habit of it where, I'll pick on Mr. Gaditz again since he's in here, where Mr. Gaditz is going every other week someplace to go check out the hot lunch program at all these other schools to see what it's like. So we'd be pretty smart on that end of it. I think that's my last bullet item. And Lisa, I apologize if this format isn't the way you like it.
It's perfect.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
10.1, building project update.
Okay, I've already talked about a few of these things, but I'm just gonna go through it. Our next owners meeting for Scott and BJ and Craig is on the 19th of November at 10 o'clock. I have invited those 2 teachers that I mentioned earlier. If they weren't able to make it, I told them they needed to pick somebody to take their place. I will find out tomorrow who that's going to be. Dean, since he's here, I have his name in here. Dean's proposing that we start meeting on a more frequent basis, more than just once a month. There's a lot of things that are going on around the job site. And unless I take time out of my day to go talk to Craig, who's our project superintendent, things just kind of go on, and I'm kind of out of the loop myself. So I think Dean's got a good idea of maybe trying to meet at least once a week if we can, if not, for sure, every other week, because there's just so much going on. A few things that have kind of happened recently just to keep everybody again in the loop. We did have a couple issues with our precast walls. I'm going to talk about numbers 2 and 4 on my list there. The first thing that happened is when they did all the precast walls, all of our electrical conduit was placed inside the concrete, so that all they have to do is run the wire and everything's inside the wall, which is great. Out of the top, they obviously have to connect all the power lines into that to get power to the outlets. They left about a 4-inch chunk of conduit sticking out, so that they could, hook onto it, add a connector, and run wire. Well, for whatever reason, when those panels got loaded onto the truck, the 4 inches that was sticking out wouldn't allow the panels to sit back to back like they were supposed to. So the gentleman at the colony cut them off, about a 1/2 inch from the concrete. Well, that doesn't allow enough space to attach the connectors to run the wire. So now the electricians have to chisel into the concrete wall to get to the conduit, which they can do, but obviously that was not in their scope of work that they had to do. So unfortunately, there's going to be some back billing back to the colony on that work that has to be done because of the mistake that was made. The second mistake that was made on one of the precast walls was right out front. There was supposed to be a window in one of them, and they had just a plain panel, no window. And so we had 2 options. They could take a saw and they could cut a hole in the concrete wall and try to put a window in, or they could replace the panel. So I asked questions about, well, how is that window gonna seal in there? Will it seal correctly? You're putting, you know, are you gonna wood frame it in, and is it gonna have condensation problems throughout the life of the window? And so, we kind of took that option away, and they've already built a new panel, and they already have the new one put in place. That happened last week. So that's already up and going. Number 3 on the list, I said the boilers are up and working in all areas, although it does not feel like it in here tonight. We did have a boiler issue over the weekend, but for the most part, the regular boilers are on, they're running. We took away the construction heaters that blew all that forced hot air around. They're gone now. And the boilers have actually been inspected by the state of South Dakota. 2 little small issues that the plumbers had to fix, those have been taken care of as well. All of the roof structures, the big beams for the roof, they arrived last week. Today I noticed there's another crane here. They're gonna start erecting the roof. They were supposed to start this week, but I'm sure the snow kind of slowed them down just a little bit. They've also done some demolition work on the roof of the elementary school, which has caused some new leaks that we haven't had before. But they have to peel back some of that old roof to tie in the new roof. So that's been going on. It's been a little bit noisy, but I think they're getting almost done. They've been pouring some of the ramps and the sidewalks and the stoops by the library door, back on the back by the where the entrance will be to the new middle school, high school building, out the back of the elementary school. If you notice, if you're ever by here, there's some block work that's being done in the middle, kind of right out here. That's the new music room. And then there's another storage area that they're working on right now just to the north of it. That's all concrete block. And again, I've talked about the elementary move that will happen in April. So that's just kind of everything that's been going on, and I'm sure there's lots of things, other things going on out there that I'm not aware of, so. Oh, the other thing, I did give the board too, a copy of a proposal log that we review at our meetings. As of today, we've really only officially accepted one change order, and that was the alternates that came in on the final bid. So all of those things have been taken care of. There's a couple other ones out there. We already did there was an air separator and some issues with some of the boiler equipment. And then we actually made some electrical changes for some of those same units that actually gave us money back. So we're about $300 ahead so far on those change orders. We do have some other ones that are still pending, and we'll talk more about those on the 19th. But we had to make some changes to the existing stairwell that's out back that you still can kind of see the stairs to, at a cost of about $400 difference to what they were proposing. We've also got a request for a proposal out there for some temporary stairs to be used as a second exit, mainly as a fire escape, just in case, out back of the music room. That one's a little bit more costly, almost $25,000 to build a wood structure to get the kids out. So we'll have to have that conversation. We're working on some carpet upgrades. We're working on the mechanical room door. It was going to be 2 big 4-foot swing out doors. We had some concerns about the wind grabbing a hold of those, and so we've changed that door to a coiling door that just rolls up on the inside to have better access to that. There's some abuse-resistant drywall that are in certain areas that we want to add because they're not there now, but they've got it figured to have it in some places that we don't need it. So we're hoping to maybe just flip-flop that and maybe not be an additional cost, and we can just move it from one place to the other. We're looking into the idea of maybe putting in built-in risers in the music room. They have those in Miller, and so I know Dean's been kind of working on that, and we'll need to look at that at another point. Obviously, we've talked about soil corrections under the new school that they've already done because they had to keep up with the pace of the building. We're also looking at maybe doing some work. There's a lot of potholes that are starting to take shape in the back parking lot. They're trying to work through their contractor. They want about $3,000 to fix the potholes, but I'm thinking that maybe we can do it cheaper by having somebody locally come in and do it. But obviously with the snow, it's hard to do right now, so that's something we're looking at. And then they did have to build a temporary ramp. on the front side to be able to have the crane pull onto the site and bring in a lot of dirt and make an area for them to go over the top of the footings and the foundations. So that will be an additional cost as well. Many of these items will come out of their contingency, so it really won't cost us any money unless we decide to not accept them, and then nothing will come out of the contingency. But just so the board knows, I do have a couple extra copies of these, if anybody from the public wants to see it. So there's all kinds of things on here. It shows us how much is left of our contingency on the back side. So like I said, we've done a lot of soil corrections and done some rock and some gravel things on site, but that's pretty much it, so.
And just clarify that that contingency was in the bid amount.
Yeah.
So that's not increasing the cost of
Well,
the project.
and we have a contingency 2D on our end from the school, so that's there too, so. We're doing okay.
So we'll do your change orders for the soil testing at the next meeting.
Correct.
So
That's
this will
fine.
come till the end of the day and we didn't have time to.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we changed that, because and I just want to clarify that, what you'll see is a change order. And we did it to our fees, because Kivers did not want it. Well, we haven't got a chance to sit down with Kivers to discuss some of these things. They're not, they're probably, people from Aberdeen won't be at every weekly meeting. I plan on being there. Craig will be there. Really, I think to keep the community there involved, we want to have a weekly meeting. Obviously, we're going to get in January and February, and we, like Scott's saying, it might be every other week, but we want to have people involved. Craig will come in and walk through what's happened the week before, what's going to be happening. We typically have always done them. They have, up until this point, everybody getting going. So now we're there. So I want to have that. So we're going to have it on the 26th. My proposal is for the 26th for the week after, but then go to a Friday. The reason why I like Fridays, number one, is I'm going to be in Pine Ridge for some days on Thursdays, so I can come back, stay at the river. And then on Friday, to me, it's a good day to have it a lot of those times, because if you have school board members and/or teachers, they'll be there. You have basketball games, you have weekend things going on in church, and that information can get put out to the public by word of mouth, better than having a Tuesday or Wednesday. So that's what we're just thinking. And Friday works out, week of Christmas and New Year's, so that's what we've been thinking.
We're also going to do, I've talked to our project superintendent, Craig, from Kivers. I'm gonna line up tours for the staff, and that invitation will get extended to school board members too, where he's gonna walk us onto the site, kind of explain to us, this is where this is at, this is what's going on here, and just again, to keep everybody in the loop and kind of see what's going on, so. Things change every day, it's just kind of fun to catch myself standing in the window watching what's going on out there, and it's interesting. I would have no idea what to do if I was out there, so. But everything's going really well, I really can't complain. Working with Kivers has been really good so far and very receptive to our ideas and our comments, and I ended up calling him on Sunday night about the boilers, and he was working on it, and got people here and got it taken care of, so. That's it.
11.1 open board time. You want? 12.1, a motion to the second for adjourned meeting.
Make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The plane's getting colder. It really does.
We probably would not turn away any help from the chairs. Everybody grab a couple, follow Mr. Deeds.